Get out of here.
Joe Rogan is all about gains and not just muscle gains. The world's highest paid podcaster has seen serious gains in his wallet, too. Rogan has earned big bucks from stand-up, acting, hosting Fear Factor, and working as a UFC commentator. However, the bulk of his wealth comes from his popular Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Rogan has an army of fans who follow his every word, and that's why he can earn as much as $200,000 per episode from his podcast. Who thought podcasting could be so lucrative? Here's a look at how Joe Rogan made and spent $100 million.
A bull lady?
Yeah. Sounds like a heifer.
Joe Rogan wasn't always the world's most popular podcaster. Today he interviews tech moguls, scientists, dietitians, nutritionists, comedians, politicians, and celebrities on the insanely riveting Joe Rogan Experience. But he started off as a struggling stand-up comic. There's no way he'd be able to afford all that expensive game meat and protein powder performing at open mic nights. Today, Rogan has a staggering net worth of $100 million, and we're willing to bet that that number keeps growing in the years to come. Rogan took his stand-up set from Boston to New York and eventually ended up in Los Angeles. Like many other comedians of his generation, he performed regularly at the world-famous Comedy Store. His alpha male demeanor and improvisational comedy style made many audience members bust a gut. Sure, his sometimes controversial stand-up act wasn't for everyone, but it impressed the right people.
I am so tired of guys trying to marry me and own me. That's what they always said. But what they mean is, here's my plan.
Rogan parlayed his stand-up success into guest spots on MTV, and MTV even offered him $500 to host the Dopey Game Show. Rogan turned down the paltry offer. Maybe he thought the idea was too stupid. But then again, he hosted Fear Factor, where contestants ate all sort of unmentionables. So who knows? He must have known bigger and better things were on the way. Next up for Rogan was sitcom stardom. The failed Fox sitcom Hardball only lasted 9 episodes, but Rogan's role on news radio really cemented his status in the world of comedy. Rogan appeared alongside comedy gods like Dave Foley, John Lovitz, Norm Macdonald, Andy Dick, and the late great Phil Hartman. Would you believe Rogan wasn't actually NBC's first choice? The role of Joe Gorelli originally went to Ray Romano, but Romano was quickly fired. Everybody loves Raymond? Well, maybe not everybody. Rogan went on to host the incredibly popular gross-out game show Fear Factor. It's insane to think that Rogan was paid millions to watch desperate contestants eat cockroaches and the private parts of farm animals. Rogan jumped from Fear Factor to another bizarre spectacle. This time, it was watching the toughest of the tough wage bloody battles in the octagon. For Rogan, it was a massive pay cut, but he didn't mind at all. He's much more passionate about mixed martial arts than eating worms, so the transition from Fear Factor to UFC was seamless. Rogan made zilch when he started out as a UFC commentator. UFC was actually on the verge of bankruptcy, but things turned around quickly. Rogan now makes $500,000 per UFC pay-per-view fight. Even Joe Rogan couldn't have foreseen how popular the Joe Rogan Experience would become. The amount of money that Rogan makes from his podcast is utterly ridiculous. In 2019 alone, the Joe Rogan Experience took in $30 million. Imagine earning $30 million for picking the brain and sharing some sticky icky with Elon Musk. Rogan's casual interview style garnered him millions of fans. Some people live their life by what they learn from listening to the Joe Rogan Experience. Rogan has chatted up luminaries like Neil deGrasse Tyson, politicians like Bernie Sanders, and Hollywood heavyweights like Robert Downey Jr. He hasn't forgotten where he came from, as Rogan often interviews stand-up comics like Joey Diaz, Bill Burr, and Doug Stanhope. The edgier the comedian, the better. Don't worry, if you like your comedy clean cut, Joe Rogan still has plenty to offer. Rogan has featured clean comics like Brian Regan on his podcast, too. The Joe Rogan Experience is downloaded about 190 million times per month, and Rogan can make as much as $200,000 from just one episode. The Joe Rogan Experience has made Rogan incredibly wealthy. Rogan earns big bucks from YouTube ad revenue, sponsorship deals, and merchandise. The podcast took Rogan from rich to mega rich, and the money just keeps rolling in. Rogan recently signed a multi-year $100 million contract with Spotify to make the music streamer the exclusive home of the Joe Rogan Experience. The Joe Rogan Experience will start airing on Spotify September 1st, and eventually the entire backlog of episodes will also be exclusively on Spotify. Don't think Rogan is selling out, though. The show won't change one bit. It'll be the same old Joe Rogan Experience that you love, but now it'll be on Spotify instead of YouTube. So, how does uber-wealthy Joe Rogan spend all of that hard-earned dough? Well, it might surprise you. And no, he doesn't spend it all on bags of green. He does enjoy lighting up, but he spends his millions in far more lucrative ways. He rarely blows his money on frivolous items, but he does like to splurge occasionally. He used some of that Fear Factor money to buy a gaudy, giant gold Buddha statue. Rogan spends money on incredible mansions, muscle cars, dream hunting expeditions, and world-class weightlifting equipment. Rogan calls Bell Canyon home, and he really loves the California community because he's lived there for many years. He has bought 2 beautiful mansions in this gated community. In 2003, he bought a 7,573 square foot mansion for $2.2 million. You could call this a starter home, because in 2018, he upgraded to an 8,720 square foot mansion, which he bought for $4.95 million. His second Bell Canyon home is far more impressive. This stunning mansion has 6 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, a swimming pool, and a home gym. This is where Rogan relaxes, works out, and comes up with those amazing questions for his podcast. The mansion is spacious and secluded, and the mountain views are breathtaking. The only thing that would make this abode more impressive would be a regulation UFC ring. And knowing Rogan, that could very well be on his to-do list. Rogan is obsessed with working out. He treats his body like a well-oiled machine, and he's not happy unless it's operating in peak condition. That means that Rogan works out as much as he can. Thankfully, he has a home gym that is the envy of every bodybuilder and fitness enthusiast. Rogan doesn't have to go to the gym like us normies. He can get a full-body workout from the comfort of his home. He has spent thousands making his home gym the best it can be. You'll find only the best and highest quality gear here. For cardio, he had a Rogue Echo bike that costs about $775. His $2,795 Rogue Monster rig safely secures his collection of barbells, and his $695 Rogue T-Bar rowing machine gives him a complete core workout. Rogan is clearly a fan of Rogue equipment. He uses a $935 Rogue Ab 3 adjustable bench to bench press and a $2,950 Rogue Monster pull-down to work on his lats. The $695 Rogue Abram GHD 2.0 is how Rogan develops his glutes. When it comes to free weights, Rogan opts for Onnit Primal Bells. These kettlebells are custom painted in Planet of the Apes-esque fashion. The menacing look of these kettlebells really helps Rogan get his pump on. After an intense workout, Rogan likes to relax in his sensory deprivation tank, which does not come cheap. Rogan's tank could cost as much as $30,000. If you want to be in tip-top shape like Rogan, you also have to eat right. Rogan champions the benefits of the keto diet and follows it almost to a T. That means a lot of green veggies and plenty of healthy proteins and fats. You won't see Rogan scarfing down donuts or eating piles of rice. Carbs are a swear word to Rogan. You also won't find Rogan stocking up on ground chuck at Costco. He is a meat eater, but he almost exclusively eats wild game that he hunts himself. That means he goes on expensive hunting expeditions so he can stock his freezers full of elk, deer, and moose meat. These guided hunting sojourns can cost as much as $30,000. Rogan took a 5-day expedition to the rolling hills of Montana to hunt deer with meat-eater host and hunting expert Steven Ranella. Rogan's close friend and fellow stand-up Brian Callen tagged along. Rogan has traveled to Hawaii to hunt axis deer and Utah to take down his favorite game, elk. Elk is Rogan's favorite game to hunt because it tastes delicious, and an entire bull elk equals about 8 months of food for him. For Rogan, hunting is about connecting with nature, and he has a great respect for the animals that he hunts. He eats as much of what he hunts as possible and does not condone trophy hunting. Rogan rarely uses firearms. He prefers a thrilling hunt with his $1,300 Hoyt archery hunting bow. He's always on the lookout for the next great hunting experience, and for him, money is no object when it comes to this hobby. Joe Rogan is also a huge gearhead, and of course, someone as muscular as Rogan would be into muscle cars. His 1970 Plymouth Barracuda is one of the finest cars in his collection, but the prize jewel is the $130,000 modified and restored custom Corvette Stingray. The Stingray is a fast and sleek machine that astronauts used to drive in the 60s, so it's no wonder that Rogan has an affinity for Corvettes. After Rogan's enlightening conversation with Elon Musk, he went out and bought a $120,000 Tesla Model S. Rogan's $190,000 custom Porsche 911 fits comfortably beside his Ford Mustang, Toyota Supra, and Acura NSX in his spacious garage. Rogan's wealth keeps growing every day, and 10 years from now, he could be worth twice as much or even more. His Spotify deal is just the tip of the iceberg. Spotify has deep pockets, and it's possible they could shell out even more to keep the Joe Rogan experience on the app once the current contract expires. That's it, folks. Are you as impressed by how much Joe Rogan has earned? What is the coolest thing he has spent money on? Like and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.